Ghost stories are a dime a dozen, but few hauntings have left behind the kind of chilling legacy as the Bell Witch, a spirit so terrifying, so relentless, that it tormented an entire family, whispering in the night, slapping children, and even claiming responsibility for a man's death. Was it a vengeful ghost, a trick of the mind, or something even darker? Tonight on Zumundous, we step into the eerie world of the Bell Witch and unravel one of America's most infamous hauntings. And welcome to Zumundous Podcast. I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
And tonight on Zumundous,
we're gonna get into like one of the most famous hauntings in American history, which I just came across. What's up?
Never mind, you said it perfect.
Okay, cool. We're gonna talk about the. Are you getting a drink? Can you want? All right, cool. He's getting up. I'm gonna have him make me a drink while I talk here for a second. He's still here. He can hear us. So we're going to talk about one of the most famous American hauntings, and this is going to be the Bell Witch. Now, this started sometime around it didn't start around. It started in 1817 in Tennessee. 1817, yeah. So this is going back a ways. Now, it ended more or less in 1821. However, there were still some other things that happened after 1821. We're going to get into it here with the Bell Witch. You guys, you've heard of the Blair Witch, obviously. This is not to be confused with the Blair Witch. This is the Bell Witch. So let's talk about it. So this takes place in, as I said, in Tennessee, on this farm. I think it was called Red River at the time. In modern day, I think it's been renamed to Adams, Tennessee. The first unusual thing that happened on this farm, there's a man named John Bell owned this farm. And sometime in 1817, he saw what he described as a dog with the head of a rabbit in his cornfield. So he has his gun with him because I think everybody just had a gun in 1817. Like, little kids carry guns around. It's fine. So he shot at it and it ran away. Didn't think anything else of it at the time. He's like, I just saw some weird looking creature out there in the woods. I shot at it. It's gone. Whatever. But then things started to happen on the Bell farm. First there were knocking on the walls in the house. And the children would say that the covers were pulled off of them in the night while they were trying to sleep. So now we have kind of like a standard poltergeist kind of thing happening, right? Like we have a full-blown haunting happening on this farm. John, his wife Lucy, and all of the children in the house saw apparitions or bodies basically walking around the house.
Like actual ghosts.
Yeah, they reported having seen apparitions in and around the house and heard strange noises there.
Okay.
But it doesn't stop there. There's more stuff. There's more stuff that happens. So this gets wild. One of John's sons said that he saw a giant bird on the property. John's daughter, Betsy, said that she saw a girl in a green dress on a rope swing outside. Like, they had never seen this girl before, but there's a girl in a green dress. She was on a rope swing outside. One of the can you say the SLAVES word on TikTok?
I'm not
sure. know. The prisoner with jobs, as the collector would say. I don't know if it's going to get you kicked off of TikTok, so I just have to be careful with my language.
Yeah, fair enough.
One of the workers on the farm said that he was followed by a black dog while he was working in the fields. Now, a lot of paranormal investigators today will tell you ghosts can't physically harm you. They're more of a psychological threat, right?
Depends on which movie you watch.
Well, yeah. But they'll tell you that ghosts can't physically harm you. But this story is the exception to the rule.
Ooh. Spicy.
So soon, the family heard knocking and choking noises throughout the house.
Ugh.
Invisible dogs, like they sounded like there was dog fights happening in the house. Rats rats in the walls and on the beds.
That could have been a thing, though.
That could have. I mean, well, they heard the sound of rats gnawing on the beds.
There could be rats in their house. It's the 18, whatever.
And then there's just chains being dragged along the floors at night.
That's not normal.
Yeah. The children had their bed sheets ripped off of them, and then the next morning they would have scratches on them.
Oh, wow.
And hair pulling. They would say that they had their hair pulled. And then Betsy, the youngest daughter, she apparently got it worse with like visible marks appearing on her body from the abuse. So she was actually like marked up.
Okay. That's crazy.
So the story still doesn't stop there. We're going to get into it. Now, this goes into a historical figure known to history as President Andrew Jackson. Now, he was General Jackson at the time, so this was before he was president.
Before
and this whole story is sourced from the Tennessee State Library Archives.
Ooh, that feels legit.
There's a little bit of weight behind this story.
I like this.
So the general and future president Andrew Jackson actually owned a property in Red River, Tennessee. So he frequented the area quite a bit. And 3 of John Bell's sons actually served under him.
Old Johnny Bell.
In the military. So when word of this haunting reached him, he told John Bell, like, I'm going to come to your farm and investigate this with a battalion of men.
So
right?
a lot of these guys were kind of, I don't mean to derail the story, but were like bigger than life characters. I don't know if Andrew Jackson was, but that sounds like something like someone you read about like early America. I'll go check out that ghost.
That really sounds like an Andrew Jackson move, though, doesn't it?
Let me send that. Didn't he get in a gunfight like at the White House? Like, I mean, this guy's like,
I think so. I mean, he also survived an assassination attempt, didn't he?
Yeah. This dude's like, he's not. I'm not saying he's not all there. He's out there. Like he's wild. He's like, yeah, ghosts. Like, yeah, I'll be a Ghostbuster.
So anyways, he makes his way to the Bell farm, and he brings men with him, right? So he's not the only ones.
That make you feel better. You got somebody to drink some bourbon with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's Tennessee.
So
Tennessee whiskey.
As soon as they enter the property, the wagon gets immediately stuck, and Jackson.
Oh, that's gotta be horrible.
Andrew Jackson curses the Bell witch, and
he knows right away.
He's like, ah, damn you!
He's sailing the Demeter. The sail flickers. He's like, Dracula.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. Curses foiled again. But apparently, a disembodied voice came.
Okay.
That freaked out the men. That said, "I will see you again tonight."
Ooh. That's not normal.
That's not normal, right? Like,
and everybody heard it?
And everybody heard it.
Yeah.
As the story goes.
Of course, right.
So one of Andrew Jackson's men on the scene was a self-proclaimed witch hunter.
Yes, dude, this is awesome.
And he had a gun loaded with a silver bullet.
Of course he does.
Which he said it would kill any evil spirit that they came across, right?
This is great.
Which is just really silly, because what's a bullet going to do against the spirit?
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, vampire hunter.
Yeah, exactly.
This is wild.
As soon as he says this, he started to just get up and jump around in a panic, saying he was being poked and beaten, like they're like knife, not knife, pinpricks, basically.
Oh, wow. Those are called no-see-ums, and they bite the crap out of you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, welcome to Tennessee, baby.
Yeah.
As soon as he says, he jumps around, obviously, and then the men came. The voice came again, saying that another fraud would soon be revealed. And by this point, Jackson's men were done. They're like, all right, we've seen it.
Scared them, then.
Yeah,
huh?
These military men were like, nope, we've seen enough. This place is evil.
Oh, wow.
We're getting out of here. We're gonna be done.
Okay.
But Andrew Jackson, being Andrew Jackson, said, no, you're not. You're gonna stay here for another night.
Quit crying. Let's do this.
Yeah, exactly. So now and this is where I start to my bullshit meter goes off a little bit, if it hasn't already.
I mean, this is a wild story.
Yeah, this is a wild tale, but this is the legend. So that's what we're telling right now. Now, there's no accounts for what actually happened that night, but the story goes that the next morning, General Jackson was seen racing out of Red River, Tennessee, saying that he'd rather face the British at New Orleans than stay here another night.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he did face the British at New Orleans, right? Yeah, and with a bunch of pirates.
Yeah. But that's an enemy you can see and face off with.
I feel like he's got some fairly stone resolve when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
and he was pretty freaked out there by that.
Well, I mean, maybe there's something to it.
So, the story doesn't stop there, though.
I like this. Keep going,
This legend continues. Now, we're going to talk about
legend continues.
The death of John Bell.
Okay.
Under mysterious circumstances in 1820. So as the years passed, the hauntings continued, and now we're going to 1820. So it's been about 3 years of this. Now, John Bell began experiencing strange muscle twitches in his face, and it progressed to migraines, tingling sensations, fatigue, seizures. Like his health is just in serious decline at this point. And there's a lot of questions as to like what's happening. So in December of 1820, John slips into a coma. The following day, on December 20th, 1820, he dies quietly in his bed. And so the family goes in and they find a mysterious vial full of dark liquid in the kitchen cupboard that wasn't. But they said it wasn't there previously. They don't know where it came from. So John Jr., his son, investigates the vial, and then the voice comes again. And the voice said, "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." So
what?
So freaked out, John Jr. takes this vial and throws it into the fire and explodes into blue flame and shoots up the chimney.
Wow.
But even after the death of John Bell, the haunting doesn't stop.
Okay.
The witch focused on John's daughter, Betsy, and began to follow her whenever she was with... So Betsy's a little bit older now. She's with a man named Joshua. Joshua is her fiance now. Whenever she was with Joshua, the Bell Witch would pull her hair, beat her, shout threats and curses. And by March of 1821, so this is only a few months after her father dies, she couldn't take it anymore. She breaks off her engagement with Joshua, and then the Bell Witch disappeared. So that's the end of the Bell Witch. Or is it?
Or... it might not be.
It's not. So the witch told Lucy that she was going, but she said, "I will return to you in 7 years."
Oh, this is like The Ring, dude.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, instead of 7 days, it's 7 years.
7 years.
In 1828, the Bell Witch reappeared to John Bell Jr., and stayed for 3 days, speaking with him about the past, the present, and the future, and reportedly made predictions about the Civil War, which at this time was still 30 years out.
Right. You're saying this is 1810-ish, right?
So we're at 1828 now.
Okay.
So we're still like 30 years out from the Civil War.
1860s.
Yeah, like over 30 years away.
Wow.
Now, she did say she would return so she left after that 3-day period.
Okay.
But said that she would return again in 107 years, but no record of her reappearing in 1935
she
happened.
Went there and nobody was home.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But
it was the Depression, everybody was walking around like a ghost.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Some of John Bell's descendants, however, that are living to this day, do claim to have seen her, or have had some sort of interaction with her. And actually,
man.
I saw one of these via
you saw her though.
No. There was an interview on the Travel Channel Ghost Hunt. There's some Travel Channel Ghost Hunting show.
Some of those shows are interesting. Some of them are silly.
I watched some clips from it just for reference or whatever. Right. And they actually interviewed the descendant of John Bell, who was basically saying that like yes, he's seen the Bell Witch. Like the Bell Witch is still in our family. Okay. Like we are kind of a haunted bloodline. The Bell Witch. So this raises the question. Who was the Bell Witch?
I don't know.
Well, there's two theories as to who she was in life. One states that she was actually a Native American, whose grave was disturbed when the Bell Farm was built on a burial ground on site. Man, that's always.
There's like a couple things I know.
You moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies.
You don't build on any burial ground. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, of course. And then there was another theory. So there's two theories. No. That she was the ghost of an actual witch who lived in the area at the time, who basically was kind of a recluse, named Kate Batts, who was just basically known for being a crazy old witch in town, essentially.
Like maybe just a crazy lady? Or
she could have been an actual witch. I don't know.
Well, we just talked about, I forget what I was watching, but people were actually claiming to be like werewolves and stuff during the Salem witch trials.
Oh, yeah, that was the show with...
So we saw the thing where they're like... people are like, oh, it's just misinterpretation and blah blah blah, and then somebody blames you're a witch, and then you're a witch. But then there's like other people that were like, there's recorded. They came out and they're like, no, I'm a witch. Yeah, I'm like no, like I'm a real witch. So I mean, like, who knows? Like, this is crazy, Like,
well, I mean, being a witch is basically just a religious practice. I mean, it's just a spiritual or religious practice, right? Like, it's not really that much to it now.
I don't know. If you're casting magic and flying around and stuff, it's crazy.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about like the theories behind, like, how we tell the story, obviously,
right,
and then I do my best to try to debunk things.
Well, no, we investigate that.
We investigate things. So
it's science.
When I went into investigating the story behind the Bell Witch, here's what I came up with. So first of all, many would believe, and I believe as well, that this is kind of a work of American folklore that has been exaggerated greatly over the years. You know what I mean? Like, listen, this is going back like 200 years. Everything starts with like a nugget of truth. There might have been some strange happenings or whatever, but this has been something that's been built up over the course of 200 years, right?
I got to give a shout out to my friend Tugs, man. He used to say the funniest thing. He's like, hey, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Exactly.
Mate. Yeah, he's my buddy from New Zealand. But he would say that like when you're telling a story, like, because he would be like, this is clearly like BS.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. But that's honestly what I do with these things is like I tell the story first.
Yeah.
Because we want to hear the story.
I'm pretty stoked about this. Yeah. It's one of my favorite ones so far.
This has been a good one, I think. But let's talk about one of the leading theories about like what happened with this thing as a whole, and we'll talk about like how it actually lines up with like reality, and it kind of explains a couple of things. So one theory revolves around that there was a man named Richard Powell. Now, Richard Powell was Betsy Bell's teacher.
I worked with a guy named Richard Powell.
Really? Is he immortal? Does he have inside him blood of kings?
Yeah, that's just wild. Yeah.
Is he a Highlander?
I think it's a coincidence.
But Powell was 11 years older than Betsy, and he was very much in love with her.
Okay.
And very like visibly and publicly like stated his disappointment when Betsy became engaged to Joshua Gardner. So he was also rumored to have knowledge of the occult, ventriloquism, and horticulture.
Ventriloquism, like the Dungeons and Dragons trait.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could talk without moving his lips.
That's pretty interesting.
He can throw his voice.
If you've ever seen like some of the guys don't do it, but people who do it, it's like, whoa, it's right? Weird. Yeah.
So if anybody in the world could, or if anybody, not in the world, but anybody in their circle could pull off something like this, it would have been him.
And horticulture is like plants and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. Plants and stuff like, poisons, in other words.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we're getting into that. Now, this theory is strengthened by the fact that Powell did indeed marry Betsy after she broke off her engagement with Joshua Gardner.
Okay.
So after, the Bell Witch saying, like, I'm not going to stop torturing you until you leave this man, why would this
That's a very specific request.
Right, exactly. And that's basically what happened. Now, we're going to talk to an expert from a local university named Dr. Megan Mann, who was interviewed on the subject. And she said that John Bell Jr. talked about all of these strange medical symptoms that his father was having. And a lot of them sounded very neurological. As someone who knows, and she was saying, as someone who knows a bit about things like biochemistry and toxicology.
Okay.
Now, Mann noted that arsenic was a commonly used poison in the early 19th century.
The one that's in like apple seeds or something.
Yeah, but I think it's like it's so like
that's
negligible.
Why when we were kids, they're like, "Don't eat that."
Yeah, but I mean, it's such a tiny amount that it's not going to do anything to you.
It's poison. Don't eat that.
But Mann noted that arsenic was a commonly used poison in that time, and long-term exposure to the element would have caused the symptoms such as muscle twitches, trouble swallowing,
like a slow poisoning.
Yeah, like a slow burn on the poisoning. Right. So, additionally, and here's the other thing: arsenic burns blue if you throw it into the fire.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Now it's getting
so this is going to explain the colorful explosion when John Jr. threw it into the fireplace. And Dr. Mann, who was interviewed for this, believes that somebody, perhaps someone from the church who didn't like the Bell family, or Richard Powell, or one of the workers on the farm, slowly poisoned John Bell over the course of 3 years, finally finishing the job in 1820.
Wow.
So she continued. If you look at the neurological symptoms, there he is. Those are often times caused by heavy metal poisoning.
Well, so heavy metal poisoning is probably pretty bad too. Like we can get like mercury or like lead poisoning or something like that.
Yeah. So sufficient evidence. I think to say that maybe there was some strange happenings on the farm.
This is cool, man.
Strange happenings on the the Bell farm.
Happenings on the Tennessee farm.
I don't know if it was quite the ghost story that it's been built up to be over the years.
So all right. What do you think scared the troops? I mean, this is before PA systems. You can't just like have a microphone and be like, "Hey, you guys, get off my lawn."
Yeah, no, that's a great. Yeah, that. I mean,
like,
I don't.
How do you scare like several armed guys? I assume they're armed anyway. I mean, Tennessee's big woods and stuff. It's before.
I mean, if that's
up, like
either that or maybe that's.
Or maybe there was.
Well,
a
we'll say Andrew Jackson wasn't president at the
time.
I'm
not saying there's aliens.
Maybe if he could talk about like how he faced off with a ghost though. Like, that's great conversation.
Come on, great conversation starter. But if this guy's campaigning, right, and like think about this, like
but these are different times,
all
though,
right,
man.
No TikTok, no podcast, right? I'm campaigning. I'm like, yeah, but I fought a ghost. Like you're gonna just be like, no, you didn't. It's the Veronica Vaughn.
This is the 1820s, though.
That ghost. And you're like, no, you didn't. Well, you can imagine if I did. Like that's so silly, right? But I mean, there's great ghost stories in Washington D.C. We were just having a conversation how a place gets creepy at night. When you're walking through old buildings and stuff like that, and it's far out. And there's one that where like a ghost. I heard that one. I think it was in Gettysburg or something. Where like the ghost is like in DC from Gettysburg or something, looking for his wife or something, like real crazy stuff, and people still see it. I mean.
Well, guys, be sure to tell us what you think. The Bell Witch, real? No? Whatever you think. Send us an email at zumundo@outlook.com, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We'd appreciate it. So we'll tell you one thing. The Bell Witch legend has endured for over 2 centuries, passed down in whispers, retold around campfires, and even inspiring movies and books. But was it a true case of supernatural torment, or just folklore spun into something more? One thing is for certain, the Bell family believed they were haunted, and to this day, some say the spirit of the Bell Witch still lingers in Tennessee, waiting for someone new to torment. So if you ever find yourself near the old Bell farm and you hear a whisper in the wind, maybe it's the breeze, or maybe she's still watching. For Zumundous, I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
And we'll see you next time. Should do like the Bell Witch Project movie. Like, I'm so scared right now. I'm so sorry, everybody.